Today's interview on the Overcoming Graduation podcast is brought to you by Audible. Get a free audiobook download and 30-day free trial at audibletrial.com/OCG. That's audibletrial.com/OCG. Over 180,000 titles to choose from for your iPhone, Android, Kindle, or MP3 player. Hello everyone and welcome back to another episode of Overcoming Graduation with Brian Drury, a show where I work to teach you everything I wished I'd known about life to help you graduate to the next level in your own. And on today's episode, my guest shares one of the most vulnerable stories that anyone has ever shared on the Overcoming Graduation podcast. And this is actually the first time he is ever sharing this in a public forum. After we had a conversation at a seminar just this past weekend, he realized that it was time for him to do for himself what he helps others do and release his own hero, release his inner hero by sharing his scariest, darkest story so that he can help free himself and free others. So I give Matt so much credit, and I believe he's an incredible example of the type of person that should be leading and should be teaching people how to release their inner hero. And it has a lot more to do with his story than just that one moment, because his career and his life is an example of working to be a hero for others. So Matt is a former Navy rescue swimmer and firefighter. Today we talk about discipline, we talk about post-traumatic stress, and beauty from heaven. And that's all going to make sense as you listen in today. Matt spent his childhood years growing up in Hawaii. And while many would consider this a dream come true, he had an experience in the ocean which changed the course of his life forever. And in his early years, unrest at home caused him to move around constantly, leaving Hawaii and living in several different places in the United States. And all the while, he felt displaced and he felt this yearning to be back home on the islands. He eventually found his way back by joining the Navy. And over a 20-year career with the Navy, he spent time working as a Navy firefighter, considered doing some time in ordnance disposal, which, if you're not familiar with that, is defusing bombs, and eventually worked his way into the elite ranks of the Navy search and rescue swimmers. If you ever saw the movie The Guardian with Kevin Costner and Ashton Kutcher, those are the Coast Guard rescue swimmers who specialize in going out and getting people when the boats are coming back in. Matt actually explains the difference between the Coast Guard and Navy rescue swimmers, and it will blow your mind. And even before his time ended in the Navy, post-traumatic stress began to have a massive impact on his life. It all culminated in an event that, as I said before, he'll be sharing for the first time publicly in today's interview. And this event was the spark he needed to finally take control of his life and begin a journey of personal growth to save his life and the lives of others around him. Now he uses his experiences from the military, his master practitioner of NLP training, and his triumph over PTS to help each person he works with release their hero through his work with his company Hero Fit. And in today's interview, Matt will discuss the most intense battle he ever faced with PTS, which wasn't on the battlefield, and how he began his path to self-healing. The one book that changed everything for him. The top lessons he learned from working with some of the top military personnel alive, including Navy SEALs, 3 daily habits that he used to pull himself out of hell, the realities of training to be a Navy rescue swimmer, how the Navy rescue swimmer motto, "So others may live," continues to fuel Matt today, and so much more. And I'm telling you guys, this interview is an emotional roller coaster when he talks about the insane stuff they put these guys through in training, when he talks about the battles that he faced, both external and internal, and how his childhood and that experience and facing that fear fueled him into doing what he is today. This interview is so important. I'm extremely proud of Matt for realizing the power in his story and the power in releasing it, letting it out into the world, because already he started to share with people and they have started to have the most incredible results and responses. So, Matt, brother, I am very proud of you. And for all you listeners, it is time for me to introduce you to Matt Grace. Matt, how are you doing today, man?
I'm good. Thanks for having me on the show, Brian. I really appreciate this.
Absolutely, dude. I am very excited to dive more into your story. As you know, when we first started talking, there are aspects of your life that are so amazing that you just talked about in such a casual way. We're going to get to those points, but we have a very interesting journey to go on with you. So we're going to get started right away. And for any listeners of the show that are consistent, you know that we typically will start the interviews at high school or college graduation. But Matt actually has a story from his childhood that was the impetus to many of the things that came later in his life. So, Matt, can you take us back to when you were 9 years old and tell us the story of what happened that later on had such a profound impact on your life?
Sure. When I was 9 years old, my cousins and I grew up in Hawaii, and we always went to this, you know, beach that we like to go to. It was called Honoka. Oh man, Honokaha Valley. A little
Hmm.
bit nervous because I gotta really dig. And I know I'm about to bare myself here.
Hmm.
It's called Honokaha Valley, and it was a beach that we often went to. And going to this beach during the summertime wasn't that bad because there are waves there and we like to have fun. But we knew that it wasn't too bad. Like the waves didn't get too big for us because I was nine, I think 9, 10 at the time. So we go out there and I'm with my cousins, and there's one cousin in particular who I like to stay right off to the side to, and his name was Mono because he was just phenomenal in the water, even at a young age.
Hmm.
So we go out there and we're bodyboarding and stuff, and out of nowhere, these sets start coming in, and they're big. And I look over at Mono, like, okay, what are we gonna do? And I'm thinking we're gonna turn around because we're too far out to make it in before the waves hit us. And it just seemed to me that the better option was to swim out further to try to make it over the crest of the wave, so
Hmm.
we wouldn't get pounded. And so I do that. I start turning around and I look over at Mono. He's like, "Come on, cuz," and he leaves. Like, okay, I guess I'm out here alone, and I got scared. I was like, what am I gonna do? So he caught the wave in, and I turned around to do the same thing because here comes another wave, and it's big, but I'm like, okay, I can handle this. So I start paddling, and just to make it fast enough so I can catch the wave down.
Hmm.
And as I'm going, I'm paddling and paddling hard, and I start turning. I'm bodyboarding, and I turn to the right, and I'm looking at this wave. And Brian, I tell you, it grew as I was on it,
Wow.
and I started getting really scared. Can I handle this? And I turned into the wave as hard as I could, and when I did that, the very front of my board caught the wave, and I fell off my board, and the wave was so big at this point, I started sliding down the face of the wave, trying to catch my breath the whole time. And before I knew it, what I was dreading was happening. I was being pounded. I was just holding on to my board. I was under the water in what we call the spin cycle. You're in the washer, you're washing your clothes, and you're just getting spun.
Hmm.
And I'm holding on to my board for dear life, and it's dark, it's cold, I can't breathe, I'm running out of breath, and all I could think of was I need to get up. I need to get up so I can breathe. And I let go of my board, and I start swimming to the top. And right when I got there, right when I could just barely catch half a breath, another wave hit me,
God.
and down I go again. And the water's about 30 feet deep, and I'm bouncing off of the bottom. Every hit knocking what little wind I had in my lungs out.
Hmm.
And I'm spinning around, and it's cold and it's dark, and I don't even know which way is up. And all I could do was swim into the direction where I thought the surface was. And I start going, and by this time, Brian, I'm clawing to the top and completely out of breath. So all I did is I opened up my mouth and I inhaled, and nothing went in there but water.
Oh my God.
And that was it. I went to sleep. And the amazing thing is, when that was done, I woke up on my board and it was flat like a lake.
Oh my God.
And I looked around me and everybody was gone. I was out there by myself. So
And
I swam. Yeah, go ahead.
so still to this day, you have no idea how you went from 30 feet down being hammered on the floor of the ocean to ending up on your board, waking up from unconsciousness, and the water is completely flat.
Divine intervention.
For sure.
That is the only thing that I can think of, is that, that day happened for a reason.
Mm-hmm. And from that point, did you develop a massive fear of the water, of swimming, of the ocean? Was it something that created this, I mean, very understandably, deep-seated fear of water and swimming and anything associated with that?
Definitely it created a fear. I had to go to the hospital, and I swam to the shore. My cousins were looking for me for a while. Like, cuz, where were you? I was like, I don't know.
Wow.
And my mom took me to the hospital. When I got home, I actually had water in my lungs.
Oh my God.
And from that, yeah, there was a fear. I still went in the ocean, but I was definitely more hesitant of, do I want to go back out into that again? Do I
Mm-hmm.
want to put myself in that type of a situation?
Mm-hmm.
And for a long time, it stuck with me.
And for the listeners, I want you guys to really pay attention, because as this story evolves, because I know some of the steps that are coming, keep in mind, or for yourself, picture a moment in your life where something bad happened, something very traumatic one time, and it may have kept you from ever going out and doing that thing again, even if it was something you loved. Because as you can hear, Matt and his cousins and his friends went out there all the time. It was safe. It was wonderful. But sometimes one traumatic experience we can allow it to mar the entire future of that experience. So an important piece is to ask yourself, is this something I really want in my life? And do I want to live with the fear? Because as we go through Matt's story, we'll know why I planted that seed and asked that question. So Matt, you have this deep-seated fear that you still go out, you're still out in the water, but that fear is still very much alive. So as you go through your middle school, your high school years, you had said that there was some key pieces to your story in high school. So can you tell us a little bit about what life looked like for you in high school and where you were at in your life?
Well, prior to high school, my parents went through a divorce, and my mother is from Ohio. So she took me, my little brother, to Ohio. And, that was a total culture shock for me, because here I am, a kid growing up in Hawaii, and all my family is brown. My stepdad's Hawaiian, and I speak Pidgin English. That's the language that we spoke growing up in Hawaii. And I get there, and Brian, they put me in ESL. For the listeners, I don't know if they know what ESL is, but it stands for English as a Second Language.
Wow.
Because they couldn't understand me. I could understand them perfectly well, but they couldn't understand me. So, during that time going through, junior high school in Ohio was really tough for me, trying to blend in. And, I never felt like I really fit. And my mother and we had a lot of disagreements about life. She was gone a lot of times when I was living there. Often I came home and it was just me and my little brother, and there was no food in the cupboards. And, it came to a point where I needed to get out of there. I didn't feel loved. I didn't feel nurtured, secure. And I just knew that I wanted to get back to the only place that made me feel that way. And it was back home to Hawaii. And Lahaina Luna is the high school that I went to there, where they have a boarding program. And it's the only school west of the Rocky Mountains where you wake up an hour before school and you go to work. And after school, you work for 2 hours. And that's what I did. That was what I did for high school up till my sophomore year. And then, I ran into some family issues in my junior year of high school where my mother called me on the phone, and I didn't really have a good you know rapport with her. I'll leave it at that. And she called me on the phone. A lot of listeners now are like, well, okay, called you on the phone. I didn't have a cell phone. The dorm actually had a pay phone that we used.
Mm-hmm.
And she called me, and I answered the phone, and I didn't want to. I didn't want to talk to her. And she said, because I stayed with my stepdad, who was my former stepdad, during the summertime. That was what I did. I stayed with him, and then I went back to the dorms. And she called me, and she says, "Matt, your dad doesn't want you."
Wow.
And that set me on a complete downward spiral. Ended up getting kicked out of the dorms. Couldn't go back to Ohio because I couldn't live with my mother. I didn't have anywhere solid to stay in Hawaii, so I was homeless. Not homeless in the place that I didn't have anywhere to stay. I had uncles and aunties and cousins and stuff, but I didn't have anywhere that was home.
Right.
And so the middle of my junior year, I got in touch with my father, and he took me in, and I actually graduated high school from Reno, Nevada. And, I didn't fit in there either. Here's this guy from Hawaii coming in here doing junior high school. Everybody's all clicked up. I'm an outsider. All I want to do is go to the beach and hang out with everybody, and again, all I wanted to do was go back to the place that was home for me. And the only way I saw to do that was to join the Navy, because I knew that Pearl Harbor was there. And that's what I did. 1 week after graduation from high school, I was in the Navy doing push-ups in San Diego.
What's really interesting here is the common thread of the desire to return home, or the desire to return to what's familiar. It's something that really is a part of all of us. There is a desire to return to what we know, what feels safe, what feels comfortable. But the interesting thing about it is the only way for us to grow and really discover ourselves is to leave those places. Maybe not permanently, but sometimes permanently. Because in a way, it's an idea and a concept of a place. Like sometimes it is, that physical place and being close to the beach, but it's also the feelings that it evokes in you and the people that you're surrounded by. And one of the most important lessons that I've had to learn in my life is that there are so many places and people to meet and experiences to have, but it's only by getting uncomfortable. And in many of these situations, like you said, it wasn't your choice to say, hey, I want to go try a new place, but you were really spurred or pushed to go to a new place and still desiring that return. What's really great too is you found a way to make that happen in going into the Navy. So for the listeners, can you tell them a bit about what you did in the Navy and what it was like being a fresh recruit diving in?
I like the word diving in.
Yeah, you see that?
That's a very good segue. I had no idea what I wanted to do in the Navy. And I met this guy, his name is Casey Christie. He's like, hey man, I'm going to go be a SEAL. Okay, cool. I have no idea what that is, and so I looked up, special operations and stuff, like what is this? And I saw EOD, explosive ordnance disposal. And what those guys do is they jump out of planes and they blow shit. No, I don't want to swear on here. They
you
blow
can totally swear on this show, dude. This is no filter. Be 100% you. Cursing is totally fine. So feel free to say blow shit up or whatever.
Yeah, because I'm getting into my Navy mindset right now.
Yeah, buddy, go for it.
So they blow shit up. I'm like, cool, man. I want to do that. What boy does not want to blow shit up?
Mm-hmm.
That's awesome. So I start training and everything, and I go to the Navy recruiter, and I take the ASVAB score, or the ASVAB test, and my score was 5 points down from the required math that I needed to get into the EOD program. I was like, well, that sucks. What's my backup here? I didn't have one. And the recruiter said, hey, becoming a damage controlman, which is the Navy's version of a firefighter, is a source rating for EOD. So you can bring this up later. We can revisit this later once you get into the fleet. Okay, cool. Fair enough. And, I made it through boot camp and everything. And I report to my first ship, which is the USS Independence out of Yokosuka, Japan. And I'm 18 years old. I'm on this aircraft carrier, 5,000 people. And again, here I am in this world where I don't know anybody, trying to figure everything out, which is normal for anybody coming out of boot camp and going into something new.
Mm-hmm.
And one day I was walking through the hangar bay, which is, below the flight deck on the ship, and the aircraft carrier is where they keep all the aircraft, where it's secure. And I saw this guy running through the hangar bay wearing a black wetsuit, carrying black fins in his hand, and he had a mask. And I was like, holy shit, who is this guy? Like, I want to do that. And the funny thing is, Brian, is that I had no idea who he was or what that was.
Right.
I just knew that was some cool shit and I wanted to do it.
Mm-hmm. What I love in this, and I want all the listeners to pay attention here, and one of the common threads, and I've talked to people that have done all kinds of different things, all different backgrounds, all different stories. What's beautiful is the process of discovery is basically the same every time. And I've talked to people who said, I ended up picking my career because there was a girl that was cute in the class and that's what she was doing, so I went for that. Other people go, well, I thought it'd be fun to get a chance to live in this city, so I picked that role. For me, I was like, I probably will have a chance to travel a lot by doing supply chain, so I'm going to do that. And the reason it's so important is young adults often think that successful people, and I'm doing air quotes, that successful people have this big master plan that they've been working since they were 3 years old, and that's why they're successful. What I have found in doing lots of interviews, working with incredible mentors, reading, etc., is that the people who are the most successful are the ones who adapt and find a way. And you did exactly that. You said, okay, here's my goal. They said, you can't get there right now. You can't do it right now because of these test scores, but here's a step you could take. So for all the listeners, I really want you to pay attention to that, because you may feel demoralized or discouraged because you can't do the thing you want to do right now. But what's one step you can take that can take you closer? Maybe it's an adjacent step. Maybe it's at an angle. Maybe you got to work your way around the wall or climb it. There's always a way to get there. And also pay attention, because Matt, when we talked about this, I remember saying it's interesting because you didn't even know who he was or what he was doing, but you wanted to be there because there was a feeling that that guy knows what he's doing, and that guy has confidence and clarity because he's just running through in his wetsuit with his fins, like dude's ready to rock. And I think that's one of the most attractive energies in the world, is when you see someone who's confident and clear on what they're doing and why.
I agree. And it's funny because that for me didn't happen right away. It took 2 years for me to actually be able to go to rescue swimmer school. It was a process because, on aircraft carriers, I had to get permission, one, to go even speak to the main guy who handled all the rescue swimmers on the ship, just to request a meeting with him. And when I did, I showed up at his door and I knocked, Fireman Grace reporting as ordered, and he just let me stand outside his door, and he looked at me like, why are you even here? Like I was wasting his time,
Mm-hmm.
when he knew I was coming, because he had to sign the form. So I get in there after he let me stand there for about 5 or 10 minutes, feeling like a complete idiot, and I sit down in his chair, and he was a big guy. I mean, in Navy, we have what is called a bosun mate, and they do a lot of things. They're the main caretakers of the ship. They make sure it's painted. They make sure it's docked properly when it comes into port. They have a lot of responsibilities. And so I go in there and I'm sitting down, and he starts grilling me. He's like, why do you want to be a rescue swimmer? I'm like, okay, cool. Now I actually know what that guy was. Sure. I didn't really know. I was like, okay, he saves people. He goes in the water and all this stuff. Like, the guys told me, because I had to, like, what is that? Okay, rescue swimmer. Okay, got it. And he turns after being quiet there for a while, and he says, only my boys are rescue swimmers.
Hmm.
And I wasn't one of his boys. So I had to actually wait, instead of letting that demoralize me, I pissed me off. I was like, F that guy, he's like, whatever, dude. And, it took 2 years until it didn't happen for me until I got to my next ship. And they asked for volunteers to become a rescue swimmer because every ship has to have at least two or they can't go underway because, people fall off the side of the ship. Who's going to get them?
Right.
You can't just send one rescue swimmer. You have to have a team. So, I volunteered. I got selected after a lot of hard training to be able to prove myself that I was ready to go. Because at that point, the only SAR swimmer we had on the ship was the guy who was training me. So he wanted me to be, as good as he was because I was going to be his partner. And that's how it started for me. That's how I went to search and rescue school.
I'm curious, what was it about the rescue swimmer? Because at first you didn't even know who the guy was. It was just like, that guy has something and I want that. I want that feeling. I want that sensation. Then you asked around, you find out he's a rescue swimmer and they perform rescues. And you may not even have gotten that much detail. But for the listeners, can you explain what rescue swimmers do primarily and why were you so called? Like, what was it about that role that just screamed like, I've got to do this no matter what, and fuck those people that tell me I can't because I'm going to find a way?
One, I'm glad you dropped the F-bomb because now I feel better doing it.
Yeah, buddy, game time. I told you.
Yeah. It's, man, that's a good question. What drew me to that was, okay, what rescue swimmers do is they operate off of two platforms in the Navy. They operate off of helicopters. They jump in off of helicopters. And they also are lowered from ships. And like I said, every ship has two. And it doesn't matter. The platform is the same. When helicopters go in to drop SAR swimmers into the ocean, they go to 20 feet. Because any higher than that, well, the rescue swimmer is going to get hurt. And the ship is the same way. They'll either, you can go off the forecastle. We can lower a rib boat, which is like a Zodiac. A lot of people know it as Zodiacs. Can be lowered in that or lowered off the front by a long rope that is called the J hook, and it lowers you down into the ocean, and you swim and you do what you need to do. So the difference between the Coast Guard, because I know a lot of people have seen the movie The Coast Guard, about Coast Guard with Ashton Kutcher.
Yeah, The Guardian. Yeah, it's a phenomenal movie.
Yeah. And a lot of that is true. The difference is, even though Navy rescue swimmers do a lot of the same operations when it comes to rescuing civilians, in the Navy, our main function is rescuing pilots after they eject. So we have the added, I don't want to say stress, the added responsibility of getting these pilots out of their parachutes. Because when a pilot ejects, they don't just, get bounced out. Their whole seat, their whole system comes with it. And and they're attached to their seat and everything, and they're attached to the parachute. So it's our job to swim up to them and make sure they're alive, they're breathing, they're conscious, but also more importantly, to get them out of that parachute, because that will drag them down to the depths. And if we aren't aware of what we're doing, we can get tangled up in that parachute and perish as well.
Mm-hmm.
That's the main function of a search and rescue swimmer in the Navy. What drew me to that with the idea of being a rescue swimmer is it took me back to that time when I was a little boy. And I said to myself, you know what, Matt? That is never going to happen to you again. And that was the challenge for myself, is to know that I'm going to have the skills now. When this happens, I'm going to know exactly what to do. And I tell you what, Brian, I have no qualms, no fears about getting in the ocean to do anything now.
Well, after some of the stuff you told me about that you did in training, I was like, no wonder the ocean doesn't scare you, because the shit they put you through in training was absolutely fucking insane. Which, really interestingly, all of my best teachers have said train to the point where the game feels easy. Whether it's martial arts, whether it's a fitness trainer, whether it's a running coach, like you put yourself through hell in training deliberately. And this is an interesting thing as well. I had a coach, just in general, for just a life coach, who said, train in general so that life becomes easy. Like find the things deliberately that are difficult, challenging, and face up to them, so that when you face the general stresses of day-to-day life that throw most people through a loop, you're fine, you're ready to rock. And for the listeners, an important piece of Matt's story there is he saw his fear, and instead of running from it and letting it dictate his life, he said, I want to master that, so I'm going to face it. And Matt, I'd love for you to share some of the most intense pieces of training, if you will, because even when I've been describing this to people after we talked, I'm like, how the fuck did he do this? Like, that's insane. But if you could share with the listeners a little bit about what it looks like to go through Navy rescue swimmer training and some of the things they do to prepare you for those intense situations with downed pilots wrapped in parachutes in their seats, etc.
Well, there's a saying that goes in the, I worked with the Navy SEAL teams for 9 years. I'll say as a rescue swimmer, I never went through BUDS or anything. I was a technician, an expeditionary warfare guy who augmented them and did things for them to free them up to go and kick down the doors and stuff like that. But one common thread that all the special operations section of the Navy has is really this. There's two sayings. One is "Hoo yah," like "Who fucking yah," right?
Mm-hmm.
And that's like your war cry. That's your battle cry. And a lot of different branches have it. The Army has "Hoorah" or "Hoo-ah," and the Marines have "Hoorah." The Navy is "Hoo yah," and that's the battle cry when you say, you know what, you haven't broken me. And one of the fun things that the instructors like to do in SAR school, well, there was a lot of fun things that they like to do. But one of them was we had this exercise called over and unders. And what that is you're sprinting on top of the water across the 25-meter pool, and then you swim underneath coming back. And you're doing this. So imagine running as fast as you can and then having to hold your breath because you're swimming underneath the water. So we did this over and over again. And then, that was to build up our lung capacity, to build up our stamina, to build up our strength, and also to see who was going to quit on themselves. The instructors were there to beat us, to make us want to quit. But the challenge was to see who among us would suck it up and keep going and challenge themselves to say, who fucking yah, I'm still here.
Mm-hmm.
Right. So we would do all that, and then they would say, okay, it pays to be a winner. Well, what that means is you're going to get pounded some more, and the person who makes it across the pool, who gives his heart and makes it to the other side first, okay, you can get out because you achieved what we wanted from you. And that's when you go balls to the wall. I mean, you're doing it the whole time anyway, but that's really the gut check.
Mm-hmm.
And, that's one exercise they would do to us. And for me, coming from what I went through, running out of air, being held underneath the ocean, being pounded on the rocks underneath 30 feet of water, that brought back that moment for me almost every time, to the point of it being, okay, I don't care if I see stars. I don't care if I pass out underwater, because you know what? I've done this before. This has happened to me. And here I am to learn how to overcome that. And one of the other things that they had us do, which was, like I said, one of our main functions is actually not one of the main function is to rescue pilots out of the parachutes. So what they do is they take a parachute and they put it in the ocean, or in the ocean. I'm picturing myself in the ocean right now, in the pool where, it's safe enough where you can tread water. But what they have you do is roll up in this parachute in the water. And I can't, it's undescribable, the feeling of being wrapped up in this thing. It's like being held, wrapped up like with an anaconda where you can't move. And they teach you, one, how to get out of that, but also how to remain calm in a situation that you feel you have no control over.
Mm.
And, you know, they prepare you for the worst. And I was being prepared for that. And one of the lessons I learned out from that was, hey, you got to look for the shine, because when that happens, once you get a little bit of air from you and you're able to see a little shine underneath the parachute, because you're underwater, you're holding breath, you don't have any air, you can't breathe. When you look for the shine underneath the parachute, that means there's an air pocket there. And you swim up to that air pocket and you punch up, and it creates just enough space so you have a couple breaths of air, you have a couple breaths of life to be able to find the apex of that parachute and pull yourself out.
Wow. Even hearing it again, it's just like a part of me churns, because what it reminds me of, the closest thing that I can compare it to in my own life is jujitsu. Because I remember early in jujitsu, the second you start to feel yourself getting choked out, you panic. It's terror. It's complete chaos inside. But then as you continue to face it more and more and more, you calm. As it gets more intense, you take deeper breaths, you slow down so that you can have more awareness, so that you can have more clarity in those moments that most people are panicking and just losing their shit. And what's really incredible about these things, and what I want the listeners to pay attention to as well, notice that Matt went to face his fears deliberately in a controlled environment with professionals, with people who know what they're doing. So even if he did go out, even if he did become unconscious, he had people around that could save him, revive him, etc. So it's finding ways to pair up with coaches and mentors who have done what you are trying to do and who can lead you down the path with experience, because they're going to push you further than you think you can go, because they know there's so much more inside of you. So Matt, again, that it still blows my mind. It's like, it's one of those things where I'm like, I can't even possibly imagine it. But you went through it all, you faced it all so that you could serve more. So can you share with the listeners, how long were you in the Navy and in the military?
I was in the Navy for 20 years. I retired.
20 years.
I joined, like I said, right out of high school. I did 11 years active as a firefighter and a Navy rescue swimmer. And the rest of the time, the 9 years I had left, I actually served at SDV Team 1, SEAL Delivery Vehicle Team 1 out of Hawaii, Pearl City. And the second duty station I had was SEAL Team 17, which is a reserve unit out of San Diego. And I deployed with SEAL Team 5, which is also out of Coronado, California.
And when you were deploying with the Navy SEAL teams as you said, a technician, what is your function in the team there, and what support are you providing?
See, everybody does something different because those guys are operating at the tip of the spear, right? They don't have time to do other things. And what a lot of people don't see is the support that they have behind them. So it was my job was to take care of the Zodiacs for them, the rigid inflatable craft that they use to go and do their operations, and take care of those things that that was taking up too much of their time to prevent them from doing other training. And that was really my main function with them. And I also did some maritime intervention operations, which is with the guys that going out and searching for boats who are running contraband that are fueling the availability for the Taliban and those guys to get money to support their terror operations. So that was part of my my job with them as well.
And when we as civilians think about Navy SEALs and rescue swimmers, these are people who are at the top of the top in like in the Navy and in this branch of the military, some of the most highly regarded people that exude discipline and self-confidence and clarity that we all like. It's as a civilian, we look at these people and we go, man, I wish I had that discipline. I wish I had that drive. I wish I had that dedication. What would you say were maybe one or two of the most important lessons you learned from working with these people that are at the top of their game in this branch of the military?
Two lessons that I learned. Well, they also have a saying. It's called "crush it,"
Yeah.
right? And that is, hey man, I'm gonna crush this. I'm gonna crush that. This shit is fucking nothing. I'm gonna crush it. And that's a saying that you are who you hang around with. You are who your closest friends are. And these guys are my closest friends. And I lived that life for a long time. And having that mentality when it comes to things that are hard makes it a lot easier. So I learned how to have that no quit attitude, even though I pushed myself and everything as a SAR swimmer. It just continued to grow for me when I worked in that community, and to do things that you thought weren't possible, to constantly push yourself to achieve greater things, and to not let yourself fall down into negativity, because you can't go into a combat environment if you have any doubt.
Mm.
You can't have that. You have to constantly be feeling like you are the shit. This is what's going to happen here, and I'm going to make it happen.
Mm-hmm.
Those are, to answer your question, those are the two main things that I got. And Brian, it's constantly there every day. Like 80% to 90% of our day was PT, exercising, physical training. And a reason for that is because there's no better way to learn mindset than to constantly beat yourself to shit.
Yep.
There isn't. We would run, when I was in Hawaii, one of my favorite workouts that we would do is we would swim from the compound, which is, to Fort Island, which is maybe a quarter mile, maybe a little bit more. And we would get out and we would run around Fort Island, which is about 4 miles. And, to come back, we swam there, so we need to swim back.
Mm-hmm.
And that was one of my favorite workouts to do, is run, swim, run. And you do that so much, it just becomes a part of you to keep pushing yourself. And, that's really what I got from working with the guys.
And for the listeners, take that lesson. Like, that's a lesson from Navy SEALs and rescue swimmers. It's crush it. It's something that, even as you were saying it, I'm like, I've been doing my own version of that recently, working to take control of my morning routine, to crush small things to start the day that builds momentum throughout the day. And for all the listeners, just think about those moments where you say, no, I'm not going to accept less than my best. Yes, I'm finally going to do this thing. I'm going to make the call. I'm going to ask the girl out. I'm going to do the workout. You do the difficult things to grow, because a lot of people think it's easy. It's easier to just stay in my comfort zone. It's more comfortable. It feels safe. But what it leads to is a life of mediocrity, not by society's definition, but by your own. But when you say, I'm going to crush it, I'm going to do everything at the maximum level I can, well, all of a sudden your life starts to shift and you don't settle for less than your best. Because one of my favorite quotes is, how you do anything is how you do everything. And if you're crushing your workout, if you're crushing your PT, if you're crushing your chores and the things you need to do in the day, that's going to come into everything. And it is absolutely going to show up in the work that you do.
Absolutely. It's pervasive.
Mm-hmm. It gets into everything.
Yeah, it becomes who you are.
And so, Matt, you're with these high-level people, and you are one of these high-level people now. You go from seeing that guy in the Bay to being that guy in the Bay. So before we move on from your military career, would you be willing to share one of the most maybe intense stories from your experiences as a rescue swimmer? And you can choose whichever one, whether it worked out well or not. But if you'd be willing to share one of the intense stories that you can share, I'd really love to hear about one of your experiences as a rescue swimmer.
Oh, very few pilots eject. Very few pilots eject. It's very rare. So the opportunities more for me to perform rescues happen with me just being in Hawaii. of all things. You'd think, okay, all this stuff is going on, out there in the ocean, and sadly enough, most of the time what I had to do was recoveries. It
Mm,
was getting into the ocean to retrieve a body. And for me, one thing that really stuck out was, actually coming back in port to Hawaii, and everybody's happy. We're manning the rails. Everybody's wearing their dress white uniform and stuff. And we hear "man overboard." I'm like, somebody trip and fall and fall into the ocean. Like, everybody's excited to get home. And we got called by the Coast Guard. Hey, we need your help. Okay, fair enough. We're closer. So we lower the Zodiac and we head out, and there was a body that was floating in the water. And what really stuck out to me was her clothes that she was wearing. She looked like she was going out to dinner.
mm,
She was going out to have a nice time. She did not expect this. This is not the place that she wanted to be. Face down in the middle of the ocean. And to go out there to have to recover her, and it wasn't pretty, Brian. I mean, she was missing for a while.
mm,
I had to turn her over to, I still had to verify that she was not living. And, to be graphic, like half of her face was gone already
mm.
because she had been in the ocean so long, and she was cut. Crabs were all over her and they were doing their thing. And it struck me so deeply. It was like, here I am. I'm coming home. I've been gone for a while, and I'm going home, and she never will.
Mm.
And out of everything that I've done out there as a rescue swimmer, on official status, not helping people because I'm out bodyboarding and I see them in trouble.
Hmm.
But for me, that one sticks out the most.
Wow. It's something that I can't imagine because, as we've talked about, it's like most people's bad day at work is, oh, I couldn't get my coffee, or I had more work than I was expecting, so I spent more time at my desk. But to see things that are that traumatic and that jarring, and the things that make you face mortality, it's something that could have been a daily thing in the work that you did. And I don't think we recognize what an impact that creates on people. It's facing that, it's seeing that, it's being put in positions where it's life or death daily. And this is something that you and I talked about, because life after the military service can be very hard for someone from any branch of the military, because you guys face things that we can't even imagine on a day-to-day basis, and in a strict, rigid environment with other people around you that share those values and share that discipline. I think there can be that camaraderie that can help people push through the tough times or the tough emotions. But there can also be those situations where, hey man, you got to be strong, you got to be clear, you got to be a man, don't feel the emotions, which can lead to a lot of problems. So can you tell us about life after the military, and when you finally came out, when you retired or when you were no longer on active duty? What did life look like for you at that point in your life?
Oh, this is where it's going to get real, buddy. Ooh, let me catch my breath here. This is the part that I wanted to share with everybody. This
Yep.
is the hard part. And like you said, going through the military, you're surrounded with guys, that are always there. And I'm a professional firefighter now as well, and there's always guys around you that are going to be there to lift you up. But coming from the environment that I did, it's there's also the undertow of show no weakness,
Mm-hmm.
which is it takes over. It takes over everything. Show no weakness. Don't admit it. Don't bare your heart and your soul. and show any of that. So, for me, I had PTS, and I don't say PTSD.
Mm-hmm.
I don't use the D in that definition because I don't believe that we are born with PTS. We were born with disorders. We're not born with post-traumatic stress.
Mm-hmm.
And
And Matt, can you explain what post-traumatic stress is for any of the listeners who aren't familiar?
yeah, post-traumatic stress is the deepest, darkest place that a person can ever find themselves. It is being isolated. It is being totally alone in a world that's dark. A world that, for me, made my heart constantly pound. It made it difficult for me it made it difficult to breathe.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the things that I developed, or one of the ways that I sought to cure this for me, was to hide it more.
Mm-hmm.
And I began, for me, the feeling of being surrounded was with me constantly. You get the typical veteran. I don't like loud public places. I don't like places that have a lot of people. And it's absolutely true. What I did to solve that problem is I started running at night with sunglasses on. Ooh, because that, for me, I could still function. That for me was functioning. That was my pill, was doing that and finding a way to still, keep in shape. Because for me, the PTS didn't start once I retired. It was a gift that I got from coming back from Afghanistan, of being on the road all the time. I became a road junkie. I was augmented to the Army, and one of the things that we did is drive around all the time. And we weren't in up armored Humvees. I was driving around in a Toyota truck.
Wow.
Waiting to get blown up the whole time. And that shit's scary, to be honest with you. It's like, is today going to be the day? And a funny thing happens when you get thrown into that high adrenaline environment, was it turns you on.
Mm.
You get addicted to that level of adrenaline, that high. So for me, it was like I wanted to all the like sitting still. And that's when I had too much time to think about things.
Mm.
So I came back from Afghanistan with that gift of PTS. And when it started happening with me, I was still at, SDV Team 1 in Hawaii. We'd go out for a run and my heart would start pounding. I couldn't breathe. My face would start getting numb. I couldn't catch my breath. So what did I do then to not look weak I'd bend over and tie my shoe.
Mm.
And I would just do that for a second, because show no weakness. And I had PTS for 10 years.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the things that really brought this to light for me was, my firstborn daughter, Ariana. I was still in the military. And, at this time when she was born, and her cries got to me, Brian, I couldn't take her crying. So I would wear earplugs to keep from having to hear that pitch, that scream.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't know what to do with that. And I ended up deploying, like, while she was still younger. Fast forward, I'm now remarried because, PTS brings a lot of stresses to marriage, and some other things happened during that time. But I met a beautiful woman who wanted to have another child. And I was like, man, I don't know. This crying thing really got to me last time. And we have our little girl. And I'm like, okay, I'm better now. I had counseling. I did things that brought me out of that state, and I'm cool. Well, we brought her home, and her birth was traumatic alone, because a couple minutes after my wife had given birth, my daughter stopped responding.
Wow.
She went unconscious. yeah, this is tough.
Mm-hmm.
And for me as a firefighter, for me as a rescue swimmer, for me to see that and be totally helpless, it to think that my daughter is dying right before me is an unbelievable power that I wouldn't want anybody to feel. You know, she ended up in the intensive, neonatal intensive care unit for a while. We brought her home. And from that moment, Brian, I was shocked.
Mm-hmm.
I was in this state of PTS, but I didn't know it. I didn't know what was going on with me. I just knew that I didn't feel connected to my daughter in a way that I should have been. And I didn't realize it. I didn't know. And, my wife had to go to work. She's a nurse. And hello, who's going to watch the baby? I am. So what happened, by this time, my daughter's like 3 months old. I want everybody to hear that. My daughter's 3 months old. Like I said, I haven't shared this with but 5 people.
Mm-hmm.
So my daughter's 3 months old and she starts crying. And I start pacing the room. Okay, what do I do? What do I do? She starts crying. Her cries get louder. What do I do? I don't know what to do with this. Her cries get louder. And I grabbed her little head. I want to be clear on this. I grabbed her little head and I shoved it into the bed so she would stop crying. And I only did it for a second. I pulled back. I was like, what am I doing? What have I just done to my little girl? And I fell back. I fell backwards and I sat on the floor and I just looked at her as she lay there crying. Because I'm crying at this point now too. I'm sobbing. I'm shaking. My heart's pounding again. I'm out of breath. My face is going numb. Here I am in that world. And I'm supposed to take care of this beautiful angel in front of me. At this point, I don't deserve to live. What have I just done? And at that point, I knew that I had to save myself to save her.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what I did, man. I worked on me. Go ahead.
So one man, like we talked about a few days ago in the airport, you sharing this, I know, is the hardest thing that you've had to share in your life. And it's been a weight you've been carrying. I want to re-emphasize why it's so important, because I know you now, once you've come through it, and we're going to talk about how you helped yourself through it. But I also want to give you huge props for having the courage to admit this, because this is so important, and here's why. There are people out there, and people probably listening to this right now, that are so afraid. They're at a breaking point. They don't have a release valve. They don't know why they're hurting. They don't know why they feel the way they do. And they think that the only way to get it out is to hurt themselves or to hurt others. By you sharing this, and by you talking about this evolution, and by you showing through your actions that there is a way to come through it, not only come through it, but come through it stronger, you're serving them, you're serving everyone listening, but most importantly, you're serving yourself and your family and your daughter. So I know from our conversation, like that feeling of I don't deserve to live, that who the fuck am I? What kind of terrible person I am to have done this? Like these thoughts come up. But human beings, when pushed, when human beings go through dramatic things, they can do things that they can't even explain. And they look back and go, oh my God, I never would have wanted to do that. I never felt that. I don't know what happened. So I want you to recognize the strength in sharing this, And also, I want you to just, really want to remind you of how much this is helping people. It's helping you. And it's going to continue to serve people as you share this more, because what really helps is when people get real, when people go deep, and when people are willing to bare their soul. And you're also helping many men and women out there who think they can't show any weakness, they can't show any vulnerability. Because to me, vulnerability and weakness are different, in that vulnerability is showing the authentic expression of you. Weakness is when we choose not to fight, we choose different routes, but this isn't weak. This is vulnerable. This is real. And for all those people that feel they can never show themselves to the world, I want you to know from me and Matt that you can, you should, and you don't need to hold on to the heaviness and the pain. Because Matt, our conversation and our weekend at Sean Stevenson's 10K prompted some things in you and allowed you to have one of, if not the most difficult conversation of your life relating to this. And would you be willing to share with the listeners about that?
Yeah, like I said, this was a secret that I had been holding in. So I had to share this with my wife. So you can imagine all the pain and everything that I was telling myself. She's going to hate me. She's going to call the cops on me. I'm going to be arrested. She's never going to want me to see my daughter again. All these things are what's going to happen if I share this with her? What's my family going to think of me? How many close people in my life am I going to lose? And I knew, Brian, that I had to tell her. And I had that conversation with her. And of course, she was pissed. She's like, "You did what?" And my daughter's name is Kayola. She's beautiful. And she's 3 years old now. Like, "You did what to Kayola?" And I had to look at her. I was like, I pushed her head into the bed so she would stop crying. Of course, she reacted how I expected her to. Pissed off. I mean, that's complete understatement. If you could put yourself in her shoes, hearing from your husband, who you see as a loving, nurturing father to your daughters, as somebody who nearly 3 years ago, when your daughter's 3 months, could have taken her life. If you could imagine that pain, whew, for her, it was tough. But what was amazing about that is that same day, my wife went out to do something, and she left me alone with my daughter. Which was, and I don't know what better word there is for beautiful. I really don't. And my wife's an amazing woman. And to share something else is that, yesterday I shared this story with my brother, Mike. I have a lot of brothers who are of another mother. And I love these guys. And Mike, when he was a young boy, and I didn't even think about this, Brian, and it didn't occur to me because I was so wrapped up in myself and what people were going to think and how they were going to react, is that when he was a little boy, his mother smothered his sister and killed her.
Oh my God.
So here's this guy, my brother, and what he said is, "God bless you, Matt." Because you were strong enough to stop.
Mm.
You were strong enough to hold back and to realize that you needed help. I hope your message touches somebody who was like my mom at that moment. Because if you were there, if my mother would have heard you, maybe now my sister would still be alive.
Wow.
Which really gave me the okay. And I mean, even though I knew I had to do this, that really gave me the okay. And
Mm-hmm.
I love him for that. I mean, you never know what's going to happen when you share your message, man. No matter how much it hurts.
And what's incredible about all of this, because so much of what I believe the challenges in life that come up is about our opportunity and our resilience and our opportunity to reframe them. And it's not necessarily to say that that was a good thing. You know, it was something that you wish had never happened. You wish it didn't have to be a conversation. But now, because you have freed yourself from keeping it a secret, you've opened yourself up, because at a deep level, all human beings carry some secrets that they're afraid to share, because they're like, if people knew this about me, they would never accept me. They would never love me. They would cast me out. They could never forgive me. And when we meet people with our darkest demons, our darkest patches, the worst things, and they look at us, and sometimes they get mad, sometimes they flip out, sometimes they need a little space for a minute, but then your wife leaves you with your daughter. She says, in the most powerful way I can think of, I trust you. She doesn't need to say the words, her actions demonstrated it. In that your friend gets to know that there's someone out there courageously sharing a story that could have saved his sister and can save so many people now. Because those painful stories can often drive us to do the best things in our lives. And hell, man, when you have those days where you get up and you're tired and you're scared, you're not thinking maybe my message doesn't matter, that's where that Navy SEAL shit comes up and says, we're going to crush it. We're going to crush the fear, because there are children out there who need your story. There are people with PTS. There are people with anxiety, with depression, with fear. There are so many people out there that need to hear this, because you went down to the darkest depths. You stopped yourself from doing something in one of the darkest moments. And then you committed to developing yourself so that now you can share a message that helps and serves. And as you're sharing yourself more honestly, vulnerably, and authentically, you are saving lives as you do it. So now I want to dive into how you saved yourself, because for the people listening that are in that dark spot right now, who feel heavy or who feel lost, I would love for you to share what you did to help pull yourself out, so that they can have an example and a model to work off of.
Absolutely. I got online.
The
What do we
old
do?
Google.
Yeah, I did, man. And I'm like, how can I heal myself? And it's funny, we don't know who's going to come into our life and give us a little piece of information that is going to pay off years down the road. And my last deployment, I was, working on the Zodiacs, and we were out in the middle of nowhere on an island. And I'm not going to say where we were, but we were out in the middle of this place on an island, and all we had were our Zodiacs and a helicopter pad. That was our transportation. Totally cut off. So, my job was important. If I didn't take care of these Zodiacs, man, these guys aren't going to get where they need to be. And I had this fear wrapped around that, because I don't have any tools. I don't have any extra resources. If these things break, that's it. And if these things break, the guys can't do the job. These things break, people can lose their lives ultimately. And so I had this real anxiety around that, like, holy shit. So one day I'm walking from our house down to we were keeping the zodiacs and everything so I could work on them. And we had two of them. Fortunately enough, we had two.
Mm-hmm.
And we only had one. We're like, well, we don't have any operations going on right now. I know, because I would be, one, taking the guys to where they need to go, cruising around on the Zodiac and doing our thing. Or I would be notified, hey, we're going to go do some stuff. We're going to take the Zode. And I went down there and it's not there. I'm like, there ain't shit going on right now. Where is this thing, right? So I asked one of the guys that was cruising around, I'm like, hey, where's the Zodiac? And I'm not going to mention any names here or anything because a lot of the guys are still operating.
Mm.
And he goes, well, they're out skiing. I'm like, what? It's like, yeah, they're trying to get up to speed so they can barefoot ski. I'm like, you motherfuckers, right? Like, don't you know what this is right now? This is the only thing we have. And there's a lesson to be learning that too, right? I mean, hey, you got to have fun in life. Right. So I go up to our lieutenant up to the house and he's in there. And every step I took from the house, it was like maybe 30, 40 yards, 50 yards at the most up to our house. We all lived in the same house, right? We all stayed together. When you're working with the guys, it doesn't matter if you're what rank you are, and all that shit goes right out the window. Calling each other our last names, all that shit goes out the window, and we use first names only. Mm. So I'll just call him John because I'm like John Smith. And how normal can you get?
Right.
So I said, I go up there and I'm going up there to see John, and he comes to the door, and dude, I was so pissed. All I could get out was, no more fun time. No more fun time. I'm like, what the fuck? Right? And he looks at me and he smiles, and this guy is one of the most brilliant people I've ever met in the world. And he looks at me as calm as can be. He said, no, Matt, there's going to be fun time. And all I could do is take my anger and frustration and walk my ass back down to where the other Zodiac was. Right? That's okay. Fuck, right? Mm-hmm. Of course, they bring the Zodiac back up and everything's fine. But we were there through Christmas, and he gave me this book called NLP, November Lima Papa, to use military phonetics, NLP for dummies. And I was pissed. Like, I'm not a dummy. I'm not going to read this shit, and it was a gift. So of course I kept it, and it stayed on my wall or in my bookshelf until that moment, which I just told you about. Mm-hmm. And I looked in this book and I said, oh my God, it's been here the whole time. This information, this beautiful science has been here this whole time. So I got online. I started looking, hey, NLP classes, where am I going to find this? Where's somewhere close? And there just happened to be, a class going on within a couple weeks that was held by Bennett Stellar University. I want to push that out there because they gave me the foundation for what I've learned and gave me the power to develop myself. Mm-hmm. And what I learned through NLP is how to get rid of all my garbage, man. Neuro-linguistic programming. Neuro is the mind, how your mind or excuse me, N is for your nervous system. Okay. Then you have the L and that is linguistics, what you say, how you hear things, the conversation that you have with yourself, more importantly than anybody else. And the P in that is for programming, how all of that programs your mind. How does it all work? Because I went through counseling. It didn't work for me, because I didn't relate to the person who was in front of me. Mm-hmm. 9 times out of 10, I was like, you're not going to understand what I have to say. You never been in the military, you didn't meet certain criteria. Medicine, I didn't like that because it numbed me. Mm-hmm. And it made me not who I was. I wanted to be fully who I am. I wanted to be present and figure out a way to save myself. How am I going to do this? And we have our motto in the rescue swimmer world is so others may live. Mm-hmm. And I want to say that again. It's so others may live. That's a rescue swimmer motto. And my whole point for doing that, getting into this myself was to save my daughter. And I wasn't going to stop until I did that. And going through this process, this 14-day intensive course, I went through hypnotherapy. I, I learned different techniques of how the mind works with your language, with your internal voice, how to take care of yourself. I gained all these magnificent tools, man. That's how I did it. That's how I saved myself. Now I went through the master practitioner course so I can, what I learned, I take that now and I help others be able to do that, because it shouldn't stop with me. And that's the reason why I decided to do this podcast, because it shouldn't stop with me.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what I learned.
So that others may live, so others may live. And I'm so glad you made that association, because what's interesting is when things from our past have different relevance in the future. And when you were in the military, so others may live, so you can rescue, you can protect. But those words, that credo that you adopted when you became a rescue swimmer, became so much more important in a place totally unrelated to the military. And it was back home. And I believe if we all adopted that mindset, and like you had said, you got out of your own head and you focused on other needs, other people, like how you could serve and how you could protect the most important person in your life, which is your daughter. When that happened, there was a shift that enabled you to see that book that had been there for years, had been right in front of you. And for the listeners, I really want you to hear that. There was something so close. It was right there. Matt just had to pick up his head and look at the bookshelf. And if you hear, it started with a 2-week course. It didn't start with nonstop studying for 6 years. Sometimes it can be something small. Sometimes it's one YouTube video, it's one podcast, it is one little piece that gets you started, that creates the momentum, that creates the change. And so for Matt, it was neurolinguistic programming. For you, it could be any number of other things. Just keep that in mind. There are so many routes, because Matt and I discussed this. When I went through therapy, I had one therapist that worked great and one that I didn't like at all because he was a condescending prick. And then there are certain books that really resonate with some people and not with others. There are certain types of music, types of events, certain destinations that help people, and others don't get helped by it. So don't be discouraged if one of these things doesn't work for you. Just realize that you have to reach out and find something else. And maybe going through all those different steps and trying different things is part of the journey that you need to experience so that you can make sure others may live. And like Matt said, it doesn't stop with you. That you can benefit from this, save your own life, enhance your own life so that you can then help others. And Matt, I'd love for you to share what you are doing now, because you save yourself. You come back from the darkest place you've ever been, and now with a deep desire to serve and share with the world. So can you tell the listeners about what work you're doing now to make sure others may live and that it doesn't stop with you?
Absolutely. I developed a program, and now I'm a personal coach as well. And, doing this podcast is, I'm not putting that out there so clients come to me and say, hey, help me. It's because I want people to learn how to help themselves. What I'm sharing is just a way that I did that.
Hell, I hope they do come to you, Matt. Shit. That's definitely a part of this.
Yeah, if they do, but that, it's not the ultimate reason for this. But
right.
If they do, then, thank you, because I'm here for a reason.
Right.
And, like I said, our ethos as a rescue swimmer is so others may live. And by knowing that, by going through the process of having to save myself, I discovered that I had to release my hero. And I believe everybody has a hero within them. And it was my opportunity to do that. I mean, shit, man, I'm a rescue swimmer. I'm a firefighter. I never realized that I was doing that in such a profound way already, but I never had the, I want to say the opportunity, but the real need to do it for myself. To that level. I've done it before, but to this level, to where I need to save my daughter, was completely different. But by going through that hardship, that journey, I realized that everybody has a hero within them. So what I'm doing now is I help people do just that. I take all of my military training, these experiences that I've gone through in my life, also as a firefighter, and the skills that I learned in going through NLP and that I use as a master practitioner now, is I help them discover how to release their hero. And that's what I'm doing now.
Fantastic. And you couldn't be a more perfect person for it, like you said, because what I think is beautiful about this journey and this evolution is you were everyone else's hero for a long time. And I'd imagine that you fell by the wayside because of that, because other people needed you more. Your motto was, so others may live, not so I can live comfortably. And so when you're going through these challenges and you're exhausted, and then, hey, another call comes in, we need you back out there, there's no question, because you're like, I'm here so others may live. But the important piece, the critical piece that you came to discover was you needed to make sure that you're living fully and you're living the best life that you can, so that you can be around longer and be the fullest expression of you to help others live more. So for the listeners, I really want you to hear that in order to be other people's hero, you need to be your own first. You need to save yourself first. You need to care for yourself first. Something that a mentor of both mine and Matt's, Sean Stevenson, says is the cure to insecurity is self-care, but it goes so much deeper than that, in that the cure to all of our ailments is self-care. And the only way we can serve fully is if we take care of ourselves. And Matt, to give the listeners a little bit of an idea, because you're 40 years old now, right?
I'm 44.
44.
Yeah.
Okay.
I look younger though. I try to,
I was going to say, I was like, for the listeners, you can't see him on the podcast, but he looks like he's like 32 and is probably in better shape than most 20-year-olds. So for the listeners, as a part of unleashing and revealing their own hero, what are the things you do in your day-to-day life to release your own hero and make sure that the negative voices don't get to run the show, and that your hero voice, your crush it voice, your vulnerability voice always is at the forefront? What are the things that you do day to day to make sure you're at the top of your game?
I mean, you said it earlier, and I don't think I could say it really any better. Is you mentioned all the things that lead to self-care. For me, knowing that I have a history of PTS, I take all of those things that were extremes for me, and some of those things may not be extreme for other people, but they're very important to take care of in everybody's daily life. It's just, taking care of your environment. What is your environment? Does your environment make you bulletproof, or is it negative?
Mm.
Who are you surrounding yourself with? That's number one. And this all goes to, self-care. So that's number one. Number two is exercising. You have to exercise. It doesn't matter who you are. If you're exercising, you're releasing that negativity within you every day, you're going to be able to think more clearly. You're going to be able to relate to other people on a more of a personal level. You're going to do better in your business, because people are like, man, this guy is awesome. He's in shape. He knows what he's talking about. He's confident, because when you exercise, when you work out, it's just a natural phenomenon where you feel more confident. You feel better about yourself. Going through PTS, that was one of the things I think that kept me from jumping off the edge, is that, hey, I was able to throw on my sunglasses and run at night still.
Mm.
And, for me, eating healthy is another thing. You are what you put into your body. If you're eating junk all the time, well, that's how you're going to feel. And I get it. I mean, I've been to that place where all you can afford is a McDonald's cheeseburger. When you're in that place where all I have is ramen noodle. Okay, do it. If that's what you need to do, do it, man. But exercise. Do what other things that you can do that are going to make you healthy. And another thing for me is to find silence in my own mind. And that comes through meditation. I'm constantly learning other forms of meditation. Zifa Gong is an amazing one that I'll just put out there, because it's very difficult for people to just sit there and meditate and sit there and go, like, okay, that's foreign to me. And he says, I move around. I can't sit there. What are you talking about, Matt? I got all this stuff in my head. I can't get a clear thought. Well, that's why they call meditation a practice. It's, finding those moments that are in between those thoughts that bring you peace. And those are 3 solid things that started me on this path. And those are things that I do every day,
Mm-hmm.
And it truly has to become a way of life.
All of those components, they're so critical. And one of my favorite things you said in that is start where you're at. So for all the listeners, I can't afford all the organic, GMO free, gluten free shit. Like, fine. That doesn't fucking matter. I can't swim 30 miles holding a dolphin over my head and then resuscitate it like Matt. That doesn't matter. What can you do today? I can't meditate for an hour. Guys, I've never meditated for an hour. I've been doing personal development work and working on implementing meditation as a practice in my life for 6 years. I think the most I ever did was like 47 minutes, because I'm like Matt in that my mind is going. I'm wasting time. I should be doing other things. But sometimes the greatest thing you can do for yourself is quiet your mind long enough to remove the chatter so you can get down to that heart, to your intuition, to your real deep knowing, to God's voice, to the universe, whatever you call it. When it's constant chatter, you can't really check in with yourself. So these things are so critical. But as Matt said, start where you're at. There have been times where I couldn't work out and all I could do was walk. So I said, okay, I'm going to walk and I'm really going to focus on my diet. There's times where, let's say I didn't have as much time, but I always believe you don't have time, you make time. Because one of my favorite quotes is, if it's important to you, you'll find a way. If not, you'll find an excuse. And so let's say there's times where, all right, I can't meditate for an hour every day, but if I do 5 minutes a day, like 5 minutes of working out, like eating 1 healthy meal a day versus 3 or 4, that's the beginning. And so those little steps, those little changes amount into big changes. They snowball. And now Matt has helped pull himself out. And Matt, before we go into our closing questions, I would love for you to talk about your relationship with your daughter now, because I believe that's one of the most beautiful pieces of this story and this turnaround.
Oh man, happily. I can't get enough of her. I can't. I have all these nicknames for her. It's funny because when she's talking a lot better now. She's 3. But when she first started talking, for her to say, hey, where's daddy, or where's mommy? She would say, mommy yo, daddy yo, right? Like Y-O. So now that's like my little nickname for her. I say, baby yo, baby yo. When I come in, she knows that I'm calling her. I'm looking for her. She's my little peanut. Keola, I hardly ever call her Keola by her full name. She goes, my name KK. And dude, she is what saved me. I truly believe that she's what saved me. And Keola in Hawaiian means beauty from heaven.
Wow. How perfect is that? Oh my God.
My other daughter, Ariana, it means the same thing, but in English. I grew up in Hawaii, and I wanted that to be a continuation of who I am, or where I grew up, is to have her have a name that represented who she is, who her family is, what she means to this world. And dude, I wouldn't be here without her. I can't get enough of her. When I'm at work at the firehouse, thank God for communication the way it is now. I can FaceTime her, I can see her, and she laughs, and she always wants her milk. That's her thing. And she's just like her dad. It's crazy. I run her. This is me. I walk around the house with surf shorts and nothing else on. Mm-hmm. That's it. And that's my daughter. She's constantly naked. I'm like, yep, you're just like your dad. And I can't wait for the time when I take her out into the ocean and she's swimming better than I am.
Wow. That's beautiful, man. It's one of the things that when I meet people, and when I'm paying attention, there's not much, I don't miss much in people. And when I saw you talk about your daughter, even before I knew your story, I saw just this overflowing, overwhelming love coming from you. Like, you couldn't help but smile when you talked about it. Your eyes light up. Even if you weren't smiling a big grin, your eyes just have this presence of like, oh my God, this beautiful angel from heaven. And to hear, like, dude, it's fucking incredible. It was just a few years ago, you were at the darkest place of your life, and now you're laughing, you're playing, you're talking about milk and laughing about her running around the house naked. Like, now you have this beautiful relationship with her. And because you're sharing the story and freeing yourself from the guilt and the pain that you've carried, your relationship will only get better with her, with yourself, with your wife, and with everybody else. So this is absolutely incredible. And I am so proud of you, man. This is really such a powerful story, and you sharing this is ensuring that others may live because of this.
Thank you, Brian. And it has, man. I mean, you know, I've been teaching people how to release their hero, and for me, this is me full circle releasing my own hero.
Yep.
Now I know that I am fully living in my purpose, and that is a beautiful thing.
Mm-hmm. And like you used to say all the time, hoo-yah. It didn't break you, buddy. It didn't break you. So to wrap up, because this has been an absolute blast, and it's been an honor, man, because I know how much emotion I saw. Like I said, I can't understand it. I can't relate. I haven't been through it, but I was like, I can imagine the courage it's going to take for him to have that conversation with his wife and to share this story on a podcast. So I am very grateful for you, and I am very excited to see you continue to grow and share this more, because this story has nothing but the power to help, to serve, to save. And it will evoke intense emotions in people because it's meant to, because we all have that thing that we carry. And this will help people free them, because you're freeing themselves. You're freeing yourself. You're being the example. So with that being said, going into our closing question, and then I'm going to give you a chance to let the listeners know where they can contact you before we wrap up.
Okay.
One of my closing questions, and my favorite one that's been around since the beginning of the show, is I typically say, if you could go back to high school graduation and talk to yourself at that point and give yourself advice, what advice would you give? But I'm going to tweak it for you.
Okay.
And I'm going to say, if you could go back to talk to yourself on that day when that moment came after you had pushed your daughter's face down into the bed and you were sitting there thinking you didn't deserve to live, what advice would you give to that younger version of Matt right now?
I got you. And that's what came to my mind is, you know, I got you. And that, I don't know if that's advice, but for me, that comes through is that you can do it. You can absolutely pull yourself up from whatever it is. We all have those two sides to us. That one negative side that says, you know, you're nothing, you're a piece of shit, you're not going to do this, you're not good enough. Who do you think you are? But there's that other side that says, I got you, man. You can do this. You're strong enough. You're stronger than you think you are. Mm-hmm. You're going to fucking crush it, and you're going to crush it well. And my advice would be to listen to that other side. Because if I didn't on that day, things would be a lot different. Mm-hmm. So my advice would be is to listen to that side. And that's what I would, you know, tell myself even now. Matt, listen to that other side of you that crushes it.
Mm-hmm. The one that crushes it, that knows he can crush it, knows that he can crush so much more than he thinks or that he's done in the past or he believes. And for the listeners, something that Matt and I both learned at the conference we were at this past weekend was Sean Stevenson shared that human beings are right machines, and we always want to be right. But oftentimes, human beings spend their lives trying to fight to prove themselves right for the things they don't want. So one of the biggest reframes for me has been, what do I want to be right about? And so I have started reconditioning my mind, like Matt talked about, neurolinguistic programming, the words I'm saying, the way my mind and my neurology and my mental state, like how all that links together. But most importantly, the conversation I'm having in my head, because the words that come out of my mouth are important too, but the internal dialogue is going constantly. And when I can change that to, I want to be right that I'm capable of doing anything. I want to be right that people need to hear my message. I want to be right that I'm so much stronger than I realize. When you start to reprogram the conversation, you recognize the capability and the potential to do incredible things. And you also start taking more action and living in your purpose. And like Matt said, he's living in his purpose, and it feels so fucking good and freeing. And I can tell you from my experience, those moments where I get past my bullshit, I start to think about the people that need me, that need Matt, that need these messages, that need to hear our voice. It's incredible what I can do when I get out of my own way. So for all the listeners, keep that in mind. Keep in mind you can crush it. Keep in mind you got yourself and you can pull yourself out. And if you need help, reach out. That's why we're here. So on that note, Matt, I know there's going to be people that want to hear more from you, want to thank you, want to share about what they experienced hearing your story. So can you please let the listeners know what are the best ways to get in touch with you and learn more about the great work you're doing?
Absolutely. The best way to get a hold of me, of course, is, Facebook and Instagram. On Facebook, Matt Grace, U.S. Navy rescue swimmer, firefighter. On Instagram, you can find me at Release Your Hero. And that's where you're going to find the content that I'm putting out. I record videos to help people really release their hero, and I share, who I am and what I'm about. And right now, that's absolutely the best way to get a hold of me.
Fantastic. And for the listeners, that will all be in the show notes. So there will be links to reach out to Matt to connect with his pages. And if something in particular jumped out to you, if there was one message that really resonated with you most, or if you just want to share some gratitude towards Matt for powerfully sharing this story to help people release their own hero, their inner hero, definitely reach out to him because it means the world. And really, you're going to continue to encourage him to do his great work, which is so important. So, Matt, this has been an absolute honor and a joy, man. It's been great to get to know you, and to get to help you share this story for the first time is something that I take very seriously and I deeply appreciate. So thank you for being you, for sharing so honestly and vulnerably, and for bringing this amazing story to the world.
Thank you, Brian. Thank you for having me. And, to all the listeners out there, just know that you're very capable of releasing your own hero. I believe all of you, every one of you, have a hero within you. Just don't give up. Don't give up on yourself. Know that you can crush it. And I'll leave you all with that. Love you guys.
Perfect. On that note, know you all can crush it. Release your inner hero. And if you need any help with that, reach out to Matt. There were so many powerful components to this interview, so many moments that resonated, jumped out, stood out that I needed to hear today, that I needed in that moment. And it's hard to summarize. Typically what I'll do at the end is pick one or two of my favorite lessons and talk about them a bit, but there was so much here, it's really hard to choose. I think some of the things that really stand out today are that battle that he faced and that dark secret that he carried. What's very interesting about us as human beings is we often think that if people saw us for who we really are, if they saw all our flaws, all our scars, all our darkness, that they could never fully accept us. We look at our story and we say, yeah, sure, they could forgive that and they could forgive that, but no one will ever love me if I share this. No one will ever accept me and bring me in. No one will ever be able to look at me the way I want to be looked at. The interesting reality about humans is we all carry our demons. We all have our secrets. We all have the heavy things in our hearts that if we don't choose to share can tear us apart. Matt freed himself by sharing this story. He's freeing others, and the important thing is he used the pain, the fear, the stress, all of it to change the course of his life forever, and he's never looked back. He got help, he did the work, and now he can help and serve others. So no matter how dark things seem right now, no matter how scary things are right now, no matter how fucked up things feel, and you're just looking at yourself in the mirror like, who the hell have I become? You can always choose to turn it around. That's what I see in this story. That's where so much of the power lies, is that it's not about how far you've fallen. It's how hard are you willing to work to come back up, to pull yourself out of hell, to get up when things seem lost. That's what I see here. That's what I feel. And that is why this message is so important. Rene Godfrey, a guy that we both met and a very incredible speaker, he shared a lesson that he said, your mess is your message. And so people want vulnerability. Dean Graziosi shared this from stage as well. People want authenticity. They want integrity. They want to feel like they're connecting with another human being. And one of the best ways to do that is to share honestly about the challenges you faced and the hell that you're going through and what you're doing about it or what you've done about it to pull yourself out. Because everyone is facing their own personal hell. And it's only by being introduced to other ways of dealing with it, other ways of processing it, that people can be freed and saved from doing things that they may never be able to forgive. Matt's combination of military training and these challenges he's faced, and then using NLP as his way of reframing the conversation in his head so that he can help others, it's a powerful metaphor that we can all use, we can all apply. And you take that and you say, all right, I'm going to lean in on this. I'm going to try this and see if this works. And if it doesn't, I'm going to keep trying. And I'm going to crush it in everything I do. I'm going to keep crushing it like the Navy SEALs say. And then until I reach a point where I have overcome this or I've created consistency in my routine so that no matter how intense the negative voices get, I can always fight back. Until I have that, I'm going to keep working on me. And even when I get there, I'm going to keep working because there's always deeper levels to go to. And then we can all confidently say, hoo-yah. It didn't break us. Guys, this life has challenges. This life has intensity. This life has fear. This life has all kinds of crazy shit it's going to throw at us. But when we're willing to face it, be honest and real, challenge ourselves and challenge the demons in our lives, we can do incredible things and then use that journey and those learnings to help others. That's what this is all about. That's what I believe. We're all here to help others. We're all here to serve others. We got to learn about our own demons and our own battles first, and we got to fight them, learn to love them, learn to reframe them. This isn't to say you have to be perfect to get started. This doesn't mean you have to be a professional salsa dancer in order to help people learn salsa. I always use this metaphor because I love dancing. You all know that. If you learn the basic step, you can teach people the basic step. All you need to be is one step ahead of the people that you're helping or serving. And sometimes you'll learn from them too. Sometimes they will teach you more important lessons than the mentors or the coaches if you're willing to have your ears open for them. So as Matt showed us, he used his fear and he faced it in the biggest way he knew how to by becoming a Navy search and rescue swimmer. You don't necessarily have to do that, but your life becomes so much more rich and full when you choose to face the demons in your life, face the fears, and prove that they don't control you. They don't guide you. The voice of fear in your mind doesn't have to be the one that runs the show. You can choose to believe, focus on, reinforce, and believe the positive voice. I love you guys. I really do. And if anyone is needing help, if anyone is stuck right now, if anyone is in that really dark place that Matt was in, I want you to reach out. Whether it's to me, Matt, or both, there are people out there who you don't even know, or maybe I do know you. There's people out there like me, like I said, whether I know you or not, that love you, that are sending you love, that want to help, that want to support, but we need to know that you need it. So if you need that, reach out. If you know somebody who needs some help and you think this episode could benefit them, share it, send it out, shoot them a Facebook message, tag them on Instagram. There's all kinds of ways to share value and help people through their struggles, and sharing content that motivates and inspiring authentic stories is one of the best ways to do it. And I would love if you'd be willing to share this with your friends and following. Guys, this was really special and really important, and I'm very proud of Matt for doing this. And I want each of you to free yourselves and release your hero. So, share this episode with people that need it. Re-listen if you need to hear it again. Go out on iTunes, find more content that helps support you through your challenges. Listen to more episodes. Do whatever it takes because you can crush it. You can. It's a choice. It's a decision. It's not always going to be easy, but you fucking got this. If you'd like to reach out to me directly for any reason, like I always say, whether it be to give feedback on the episode, to share a lesson that was powerful, to recommend an episode you'd like to hear or an interviewee you'd like me to reach out to, or just to say, hey, thanks, Matt. I appreciate you, brother. I'd love to hear it. Whatever I get, I'll share with Matt as well. And you can reach out to me at brian@overcominggraduation.com. And if you want to stay up to date on all the most recent stuff that is going on in the Overcoming Graduation world, be sure to subscribe to the podcast on iTunes or on Stitcher, and check out Overcoming Graduation on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. I love you guys. Thank you all for listening. Thank you for being a part of this. And I will be talking to you again real soon.